to speak the truth that sets men free. Anytime the choice is made to stand upon the word, I know, I know, I know, I know, God is on the move, on the move, hallelujah. God is on the move in many mighty ways. God is on the move, hallelujah. God is on the move today.
Hallelujah. A man and his wife were cleaning out their attic, and they came across a claim ticket for a pair of shoes that they had put in a shoe repair shop many years ago. The date stamped on the ticket showed that it was over 11 years old. The man asked his wife, "Do you think the shoes might still be there?" The wife said, "Probably not, but it's worth a try." So the man drove to the repair shop and handed the ticket to the man behind the counter. And the man looked at the ticket and said, "Just a minute, I'll go see if I can find them." He disappeared to the back of the shop, and he was gone a while, and a few minutes later the man called out, "Here they are!" No kidding. The man came back. The guy that was the owner of the shoes said, "That's terrific. We would have thought we would not have thought that they'd still be here after all this time." And the man came back to the counter and he said, "They'll be ready on Thursday." Seems like the shoe repairman had been putting off working on those shoes. Today I'm preaching a sermon that has become a tradition, usually the last Sunday of the year, in this case the last Sunday of the decade. It's entitled, "Come Before Winter." We're going to be looking at the final recorded words of the Apostle Paul found in 2 Timothy chapter 4, beginning with verse 9. If you have a Bible, and I hope you do, you can turn to that. If you don't have a Bible, but you need one, we have a Bible rack in the back. You're welcome to borrow one while you're here. 2 Timothy chapter 4, beginning with verse 9 to the end of the book of 2 Timothy. And it reads this way, "Do your best to come to me soon. For Demas, in love with this present world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. Crescens has gone to Galatia, Titus to Dalmatia. Luke alone is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you, for he is very useful to me for my ministry. Tychicus I have sent to Ephesus. When you come, bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas, also the books, and above all the parchments. Alexander the coppersmith did me great harm. The Lord will repay him according to his deeds. Beware of him yourself, for he strongly opposed our message and my first defense. No one came to stand by me, but all deserted me. May it not be charged against them. But the Lord stood by me and strengthened me, so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed, and all the Gentiles might hear it. So I was rescued from the lion's mouth. The Lord will rescue me from every evil deed and bring me safely into his heavenly kingdom. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen." Then he says these words, "Greet Priscilla and Aquila and the household of Onesiphorus. Erastus remained at Corinth, and I left Trophimus, who was ill at Miletus. Do your best to come before winter. Eubulus sends greetings to you, as do Pudens and Linus and Claudia and all the brothers. The Lord be with your spirit. Grace be with you." These are the very last recorded words of the Apostle Paul. And we don't know what happened after this. The Bible just doesn't tell us. But it's likely that the Apostle Paul, very shortly after writing this letter to Timothy, was beheaded by the Roman Emperor Nero. So what was on Paul's mind at the end of his life? Someone has said that when a person knows that their time on earth is about to end, that they don't involve themselves in the frivolous, but they get down to business. When we read what the Apostle Paul wrote, we can see that his last recorded words are mostly about people. In his final days, his thoughts went to Demas, a friend who had left him in his time of need, choosing instead to love the world. He thought about other good friends, Crescens, Titus, and Tychicus, who were serving the Lord in other places. He's grateful that Luke had remained in Rome to give him comfort while he was in prison. And he mentions a man named Alexander, a metal worker, a coppersmith, who opposed him and did all that he could to stop the preaching of the gospel. He sends greetings to Timothy from friends in Rome. He gives thanks to God for standing by him in his trial when it seemed that all had forsaken him. He also expresses complete confidence that he will one day enter the kingdom of heaven. But above everything else, Paul wanted Timothy to come see him in prison before he died. Timothy was probably in Ephesus, hundreds of miles away. Because of that, Paul knew that it would take several months for him to get to Rome. And that's why Paul writes in verse 9, "Do your best to come to me soon." And in verses 11 and 12, he says, "Luke alone is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you, for he is very useful to me for ministry. Tychicus I have sent to Ephesus. When you come, bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas, also the books, and above all the parchments." And then at verse 21 it says, "Do your best to come before winter." Paul is basically saying, Timothy, if you're going to come at all, come now. Don't wait. Don't delay. I won't be alive much longer. Come quickly, my friend. Come before winter. Here's point number 1. Some things must be done before winter, or they won't be done at all. Some things must be done before winter, or they won't be done at all. Why did Paul ask Timothy to come before winter? The answer is simple. Once winter sets in, the seas are just too rough for any sea-going vessel. So Timothy needed to book passage on one of those ships soon so he could get to Rome before winter set in. If he delayed, he would not get to Rome until the spring, and if he waited that long, Paul would very likely already be dead. I believe, brothers and sisters, that there are doors of opportunity that are open to us today, and if we don't take advantage of them by springtime, they will be shut forever.
Yes.
There is no room in the kingdom of God for procrastination. We must respond now. We can't wait. We cannot put it off. James chapter 4, verses 13 and 14 says this, "Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit, yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes." Brothers and sisters, that's who we are. That's what we are. We are just a vapor, just a mist. Our lives go by so quickly. I just turned 65 years old a few days ago. And those 65 years, I can tell you, have gone by so quickly. And while I pray it doesn't, death could come to me at any time. So Paul says, Timothy, make sure you come quickly and bring my cloak because it's cold in prison in the winter. And bring my books and the parchments so I can write while I'm here. You need to understand, Paul was not afraid to die. He was not afraid to die. Paul is the one that wrote to the church at Philippi in Philippians 1:21 these words. He says, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." Paul was not afraid to die because Paul knew exactly where he was going. Death was not the problem. The problem was that he did not want to die alone.
Yes, teach.
No one wants to die alone.
Yes.
We don't want to be forgotten. We want someone to be with us. We want someone to remember that we were here. Point number 2 is this. Some people have waited too long. Here we are faced with a mystery. Did Timothy get to Rome before Paul's death? We simply don't know the answer to that question. But let's assume that he did not. Maybe Timothy rationalized his delay like this. I need to go see my friend and my mentor, Paul, in Rome, but I have some things that I need to take care of here in Ephesus. I have every intention to go. I just cannot do it now. So he delays. And winter comes. And Timothy is sitting hundreds of miles away. He can't get a ship until spring. For months, he's worried about his dear friend Paul sitting in prison so far away. Finally, better weather comes, and he finally makes his way to Rome. And when he arrives, he tries to find Paul, but no one seems to know where he is. Finally, he comes to the home of Claudia, or Pudens, or Linus. They say to Timothy, Paul really wanted to see you. He prayed that you would come. He never gave up hope that you would come. Unfortunately, he was beheaded last October. But he did leave this message for you. Give Timothy my love. Tell him goodbye for me. Tell him to meet me in heaven. Now, we don't know if that's what happened at all. But we do know this. Putting things off destroys many good intentions. Putting things off destroys many good intentions. Things that are important are neglected every single day. We mean to say a word of encouragement to someone, but we never get around to it. We mean to write a letter or make a call, but it never gets done. We have every intention of sharing Jesus with someone we know, but we haven't gotten around to doing it yet. We intend to get serious in our Christian faith. We decide that it's time to pray more, read the Bible more, and attend church every Sunday, but then life happens. We get sidetracked. Finally, day comes when our determination is gone and our spiritual life has grown dull. Paul said, come before winter. His message to us is to come before winter, to come now, do it now, serve Jesus now. What you have been meaning to do for Jesus, you can do, but don't delay. Here's the next point. We are guilty of letting unimportant things cause us to miss the important things. We let unimportant things cause us to miss the important things. If you had been in Timothy's shoes, would you have dropped everything and gone to see your friend? I'd like to think that I would have gone. However, I remember a day when my mother was in the hospital in Tampa, Florida. She had slipped and fallen off the back porch steps and had been taken by ambulance to the hospital. But while she was there, she seemed to be in good spirits, at least at first. And after she had been there for several days, and I had talked to her every single day, it seemed that she was getting frustrated with just sitting in bed. Now, you need to understand that I inherited from my mother something that my stepfather called traveling consumption. Traveling consumption is, I can't stand sitting around. I get so antsy. Is that a word? Antsy a word? I get so antsy that I got to get up and do something. When we're putting up our Christmas trees, my family has to send me out several times during the process, or I get ugly. I cannot sit around for too long. I got to be moving. I got to be doing something. My mother was the same way, and so I could imagine her sitting in that hospital, in a hospital bed, feeling the need to get out and get moving, being affected in a serious way with this traveling consumption. And I'm sure she thought, if I can't get up and get out of this place, I will just go stir crazy. When I spoke to my mother on the phone, she told me that she was so tired of being there, and if they didn't let her out of the hospital that day, that she was going to go home tomorrow, the next day. She sounded strong, and I felt no need to go and see her. She told me that she was going home that day or the next. I assumed that Mom would live a little bit longer. I started thinking about some things that I needed to get accomplished at my house here in Tennessee. The next day I got a phone call from my brother Darrell saying, Mom just passed away from a massive heart attack. I should have been there. Nothing at my place was more important to me than being there when my mom died. Listen, brothers and sisters, regret is a terrible lifelong companion. There is a story from the Revolutionary War about a colonel named Johann Rall, who was the commander of Hessian troops stationed in Trenton, New Jersey. Colonel Rall was playing cards in his tent when a courier brought an urgent message. Because it was Colonel Rall's turn to play his cards, he put the letter in his pocket and didn't bother to read it until after the game was over. But after finishing his card game, he took the message out of his pocket and read it. The urgent message was that General George Washington was crossing the Delaware River. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, he hurriedly tried to rally his men to meet the oncoming attack. However, his procrastination was his undoing. He and many of his men were killed, and the rest of the regiment were captured. If you're older than 10 years old, then you were here when the clock struck midnight on December 31st, 2010. Since then, you have had 10 years to accomplish a number of things. 10 years. Now, factoring in the extra day in leap years in 2012 and 2016, that's 87,648 hours since that clock struck midnight on December 31st, 2010. Let's keep going. That's 5,258 minutes and 880 when the clock strikes midnight this Tuesday evening, 2 days from now. By extension, that's 315,532,800 seconds. Many of us will not be around when the clock strikes midnight, December 31st, 2029. I went to the world clock this morning and I counted for 2 minutes how many people died during that 2-minute period. 224 people died around the world in those 2 minutes. 224 people. While we have been here talking today, over 1,000 people have died. Someday, you and I will be part of that statistic. It's not a trick question, but what is the death rate for humans? 100%. There is nobody alive today that said, man, I beat death. I'm 4,687 years old. Because everybody that's born dies. Everyone who is born dies. You and I will be part of that statistic. What are some things that you need to do before it's too late? Many of us have good intentions, but somehow we never get around to doing these things, acting on these good intentions. There's a famous phrase that says this: the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Too often we end up with the ifs and buts of life. Some things need to be said now. Some things need to be done now. The opportunity is today, not tomorrow. What is it that Jesus is calling you to do? What good deed have you been putting off to do something good for someone? What act of forgiveness have you been dragging your feet on? What phone call do you need to make? What letter do you need to write or text message do you need to send? What broken relationship needs to be repaired?
Yes.
If you intend to spend time with someone, do it now. They won't be around forever. Who in your life needs to know Jesus, but you've been putting off telling them the good news that He has to offer them? Whatever it is, do it now. Tomorrow may never come. Come before winter. Let's go to the Lord. Father, I thank you for this message to us. A reminder that today is the day, that this is the hour. Because there's a time coming when it will be too late. There's a time coming when we will need for someone to do something for us, or a time is coming when we need to do something for someone and it will be too late because we're no longer here or they're no longer here. Father, today, let us not procrastinate. Let us not put off till tomorrow what we need to do today. The Apostle Paul, in his last words of all the teaching, Father, that he gave us in the Bible, his last words were, come before winter. Come soon. Don't delay. Father, let that be our message today. At the end of 2019, at the end of this decade, Father, let that be our challenge, not to wait, not to put it off, but to come. To come. To do it today. Make that phone call today. Write that letter today. Seek forgiveness today, Father. Let it happen sooner rather than later. We don't know how much longer we have on this earth. There are some things that you've called us to do that we have yet to do. Father, let it be today. Let it be soon. Let us not wait until it's too late. For I ask this and I pray in Jesus'
name. Anytime in weakness someone falls upon their knees, Lord has to speak the truth that sets men free. Anytime the choice is made to stand upon the word, I know